Hey there, it's Marley. Welcome to my booktube channel, or welcome back. Today we are going to be doing my November TBR with a little twist where I had my followers on Instagram help me pick some of the books I'm going to be reading this month. And I know it is officially now November, but I am still rocking the Halloween spirit a little bit with my earrings, and you can't even see my shirt in this, but it is Scream. Gotta keep the spooky fall vibes going. As always, I am doing a reading blog with a special theme to it that I'm not going to share, but feel free to guess in the comments. It might seem kind of random, so I'm curious to see if you can guess it. Then we'll get into the polls that my followers voted on. But first up, we have Carmilla. This is by Sheridan Fanu. Basically, this is a classic gothic novel about the vampire Carmilla. I think she is like the original vampire, like even before Dracula. So I'm very interested to read this because I love vampires. I did enjoy Dracula, but not as much as I enjoyed Frankenstein, but still I have enjoyed these sort of gothic classics a little more than I have some of the other classics I've tried to get into. So I think this could be a potentially good one. I don't really know much more about the plot than that, but you will see that in the vlog. And then I would love to finally get to Hazelwood's STEMinist romance books. I have been reading her full-length novels, but I have not got to that novella collection that she put out. So I would at least like to read the first one this month, called Under One Roof. And what is the plot of this one? I assume it's similar to her other books. Okay, so it is a roommate story. Okay, that makes sense with Under One Roof. Like, come on. I haven't read too many roommate romances, probably because I don't get into, you know, all the Kindle romances. Like, there's some tropes that I just haven't read a ton of. So this one should be good. I do really like forced proximity, so we'll see. And I think with her books, it is better to kind of space them out because they are all so similar with certain tropes and just with her writing. So I think it's probably for the best if I only aim to read like the first novella and leave the rest for another time. Next up on the list is She and Her Cat Stories by Makoto Shinkai. And basically this is a collection of, I think, a few short stories about women and their cats and just little nice, I don't know, moments that they have with their cats while they're kind of trying to figure out their life and their love life and stuff. This just sounds like it should be really cute, especially as a cat lover like I am. I think this just could be like a nice cozy read for me. Then we have Escape Room by Maren Stoffels. This is kind of random, but it is a YA thriller about a bunch of friends that go to an escape room, and then it takes a dark turn where like they're not able to escape. I assume it might turn murderous. This obviously sounds very similar to the escape room movies, like thriller horror movies, and I have really enjoyed that series, and I really enjoy doing escape rooms in real life, so that's why this book kind of intrigued me. It's not a super popular book, it's not one you hear a lot about, so we'll have to see. It might be a miss, but I feel like with the concept I may as well give it a try and see how it is. Lastly, for that vlog, we have The Arrangements by Kiersten Modglin. So this is a thriller that I have heard quite a bit about, where it's about this married couple who's having some trouble, typical start to a domestic thriller, and they decide to come up with this arrangement to try to improve their marriage. And it's basically that they are going to go on dates with other people and they're not going to talk about it to each other. I don't know why they think that's going to work out, but I think it takes a dark turn. As you probably could imagine, this setup does not sound good. So I think those are the 5 books I'm going to be reading for that reading blog. Now, actually, before we get into the polls, another book I want to maybe try and fit in this month, because I've been telling my boyfriend I'm going to try to, is The Troop by Nick Cutter. This has been on my TBR since Gabby from Gabby Reads has just raved about it. It is a horror book, and I think it's a book that got her into horror. I think it's about these boys who, oh yeah, it's a Boy Scout troop that they get stranded in the Canadian wilderness for a weekend camping trip, and then it just takes a dark turn from there. My boyfriend read it. He didn't really like it, but it's from his bookshelf, so I'm like, oh well, I'll just get to it now too, or I'd like to anyways. So I'm gonna try to fit this in if I can. Now for the polls. Okay, so I asked my Bookstagram followers to vote on these polls. If you don't follow me on my Instagram, it is linked in the description if you want to go follow me there. But I did them kind of by like categories, like 3 different things that you could vote on. So the first one was just fantasy. So I have most of my physical TBR is fantasy at this point. I just think it's more fun to buy fantasy books. Oh, this is not even than anything else. Does anyone else feel that way? I feel like the covers are prettier. Normally they're like series, so it's more like nice to have on your shelves, like these series. Anyways, the 2 books I put out there were Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo, because this is the, I think, final book in the Grishaverse series, and I just haven't got to it yet. I think it's daunting for me because it's so big, and I feel like I was spoiled a little bit of some things that happened. Then we had Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken. And this is, I think it's gonna be a standalone fantasy, but it has to do with like Arthurian legends. This came out this year. When I put that up, the votes came in at 56% that Rule of Wolves won. So everyone knew that I needed to finish up the series before starting something else. I appreciate that. But I am a little disappointed because I am excited for this one. So maybe I can get to it later in the year, but there's not much time left. I'm not even gonna attempt a plot summary for this. It's part of the Grishaverse series, which is the Shadow and Bone, Six of Crows, that whole world. The next duo I put up there was thrillers as the category. So we have My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. This is basically Dexter meets Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where this couple like murders people to keep their marriage alive. Now, that would have been funny. That would be funny if I ended up reading this the same month as The Arrangement. I think The Arrangement probably is a better solution than killing people like these two, if I had to pick between the 2 solutions. Anyways, the other book is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Obviously the newest Lisa Jewell book, and it's about these 2 women and their pasts and a podcast. Basically, I've heard really good things about this, so I guess it's no surprise that this is what won the poll. I'm not really shocked because it is the newer book, but this was like another adult thriller I just had on my physical TBR, so I threw it in there. It won with 67%. So this is one I'll be going with, and I'm honestly quite excited for that because, as I said, I'm hearing good things. The next poll was sequels, and they're both fantasy sequels, which I know Rule of Wolves also was. So anyway, but this is just how I did it. Okay, so the 2 sequels were The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. So this is the 4th and final book in the Raven Cycle series, which I have been reading over the last few months and really loving. It's a YA fantasy series. And then we have King of Fools by Amanda Foody, and this is from the Shadow Game series. So this is the sequel to Ace of Shades. Is that what it's called? Ace of Shades, yeah. And this is just has to do with like magic, the city of sin, like gambling, stuff like that. So here's the dilemma. The poll came in at 50% for each, so it's a tie. But I have to admit, I did vote on my own polls. I don't know if most people do that, but I was like, what if no one votes? Like, I just voted, and so I'm gonna subtract my vote in order to break the tie, if you know what I mean, because I technically already voted. So my vote was for The Raven King because I really want to finish this series that I've been loving. But if I take away my vote from this, that means King of Fools wins. So this is the one I will be going with, so that's fine. I did enjoy the first book. I think I gave it 4 stars, and it's probably best to continue it before I start forgetting too much, because I feel like I already am having trouble with explaining the plot a little bit. The first one, it is about a girl whose mother goes missing, and then she goes to the city that her mother was last seen in, and she gets wrapped up in this whole street war. Oh yeah, like the street war between these kind of like gangs. She plays the shadow game. All right, so that's gonna be my TBR for this month. Leave me a comment if you have any thoughts, and as I said, be sure to follow me on Instagram if you want to participate in future polls that I might do. This was the first one I ever did. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.